Moving to the Oregon coast, maybe you've seen a little place called Depoe Bay on the map. Well, in this video, we're going to talk about Depoe Bay. Stay tuned to learn more. Hey, what's up everybody? This is Clem with the Home Team Brokers coming to you from the Oregon coast. If this is your first time to the channel living on the Oregon coast and you want to get more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. We talk to people all the time who are relocating to the Oregon coast, buying a second home, vacation home, primary residence, you name it, and we love to help with that process. So if that's you, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link down below in the description of the video, schedule a Zoom call with us. Either way, we would love to help with your move to the Oregon coast. So if you're thinking about moving to the Oregon coast and you're starting to take some of the steps towards researching different areas, maybe actually engaging in a home search, there's going to be towns that really stand out, especially towns that tend to be a little bit larger for the Oregon coast. Your Astorias, Seaside, Tillamook, Newport, Lincoln City, Florence, Coos Bay, Brookings. These are towns that kind of tend to rise to the top of people's searches because they have more housing stock, you see more inventory, and overall there's just more information about these places because they're larger and more people live there. But in between these larger towns, there are much smaller towns kind of smattered throughout the coast, and Depoe Bay is one of them. Depoe Bay is right on the central Oregon coast, in between Lincoln City to the north and Newport to the south, right in the middle of these two large towns that have about 10,000 people. Depoe Bay has about 1,500 people. So not the smallest populated, or not the smallest town in terms of population. It is a very small town as far as its geographical footprint, though, being just under 2 square miles. So this is a very small area. If you're passing through the main street in town, is right along Highway 101. So you see a lot of towns like this on the Oregon coast that have kind of the main downtown area, the businesses, the restaurants, the shops, all of that is right on Highway 101. There are some towns that are set off of the highway as well and a little bit more removed and a little bit more private. So I don't know how much that changes the dynamic necessarily as far as living there. Obviously, there's more traffic going along the highway and you have a lot of pedestrian traffic in towns like this too. So, traffic can slow down quite a bit. It can be a little more hectic. And Depoe Bay is definitely a place that attracts a lot of tourism. It doesn't have a ton of places to stay. There are a couple of resorts, some hotels, and of course some vacation rentals. But I think Depoe Bay is probably a town where at least a lot of the people coming in are going there for day trips, because Depoe Bay is the whale watching capital of the Oregon coast. So there are charters, there are observation decks, there's also fishing charters as well. So as far as getting out on the water, in particular doing a lot of that whale watching, that does attract a lot of people to the area. But if somebody's staying the weekend, staying a week, they might not be staying in Depoe Bay. They might be staying in Lincoln City or Newport, or even areas that are a little bit further out, drive into Depoe Bay and leave. That's not to say that you don't get a ton of overnight tourism necessarily, but I think as far as what Depoe Bay offers, it's less a destination for people to come stay, more so a place where people come into town, grab a great lunch at like Gracie's Sea Hag or Depoe Bay Brewing, and then charter a boat, do some fishing, and of course do some whale watching, which really spans the majority of the year. I think really from about May to December, you get a lot of good whale watching off and on. throughout that time, and it's really incredible. I think, you know, there's definitely spots up and down the Oregon coast where you have great whale watching. I think a good comparison to Depoe Bay is a place like Yachats, because there is a lot of great whale watching there, but also because the beach access is not as great in Depoe Bay as it is in other towns on the Oregon coast. That's also very similar to Yachats. So the coastline in this area is really rocky, really rugged. There's actually a seawall that spans the entire length of town. So you're on this tiny little bay and there's just a seawall, and actually when there's high winds and storms and big waves coming in, you can actually get water coming up over the seawall onto the street. And that's something that's kind of cool to see, but not exactly what everybody has in mind when they think of, you know, being at the beach, being at the coast, where you have, you know, just north in Lincoln City, all throughout Lincoln City. I think there's 7 miles of coastline there, but just north of Depoe Bay, south of Lincoln City, you have Glen Beach and Lincoln Beach. These are unincorporated areas of Lincoln County, a little more of a resort community type feel, in particular Glen Beach and Salishan as well on the Siletz Bay just south of Lincoln City. So you have a lot of second homes and vacation homes and things like that in this area to the north, and a lot of great beach access. 5-10 minute drive, you know, from Depoe Bay to get to some of these great beaches. And then to the south you have Beverly Beach, just before you get into Newport. And Beverly Beach has a lot of camping. They actually have these yurts that you can stay in, which are really cool. They book out pretty far in advance. It's a really cool experience to stay in this campground and stay in one of these yurts and be able to walk out to the beach. My 8th grade class, the middle school I went to, every year, the 8th grade class goes down and stays in these yurts at Beverly Beach, and it's an awesome time. So you have, you know, just north and just south of Depoe Bay, you have these long stretches of beaches and great beach access, but right in town, you're not really going to be able to find a place to live in Depoe Bay where you can walk to the beach. That is with the exception of in Whale Cove, in this area, this little community just south of Depoe Bay, or south of town in Depoe Bay. You have a small headland that comes out that kind of makes the south end of the bay, and along that bluff there are a lot of homes, a lot of really nice homes too. In fact, there's a listing in there right now that's $3.5 million. It's just incredible sweeping views, enormous house. It's pretty awesome. You get a lot of luxury, larger homes like that in this area, and down in Whale Cove, there is a small little beach that you can walk to from this community, but it's pretty small, and I haven't spent a ton of time there, but I could imagine, being the only beach right there in town, that it probably does get a little bit crowded, again, because it is a little bit on the smaller side. You know, this private little beach that's enclosed, it's cool, but it doesn't really have the same dynamic as some of these larger beaches on the Oregon coast, which again, from Depoe Bay, you still can get to pretty quickly. Depoe Bay is also home to the world's smallest harbor, so just set in east of the highway and 101, kind of behind the downtown area and kind of the main street buildings, you have the world's smallest navigable harbor, and I don't know the exact dimensions, but you can see it. It's really tiny, but you have a tiny little marina in there. You have some boats in there. It's kind of cool to see, a little more of a novelty. You know, it's one of those things, I think, at least to some extent, that you wouldn't notice how small it is or assume it's the world's smallest harbor when you're driving past it. But it's one of those things like, you know, the largest wooden nickel, you know, in Iowa, or the largest ball of yarn in Kansas, you know, these things that people, you know, might stop and see on a cross-country road trip. And despite not having, you know, as much to do as far as, you know, the beach and, you know, Depoe Bay being a smaller town, you know, there's a few restaurants, a few shops, things like that. There's a little bit to do in town, but on a much, much smaller scale than you have in Lincoln City and Newport to the north. You still have access to these areas that have really everything that you would need as far as kind of in-town amenities, but also there's a lot of great beaches in these areas, and there's a lot of great activities and things to do. So all of the kind of the typical outdoor activities that you would want to engage in moving to the Oregon coast, you still have great access to that living in Depoe Bay. it's just a little bit of a dynamic as far as the geology of the area. But up north in particular in Lincoln City, there's a ton of great hiking. And again, really some of the best beaches, best beach access on the Oregon coast is in Lincoln City. And then Newport to the south, a little bit more of a tourist area. This is sort of the unofficial capital of the Oregon coast, being in Newport, where you have the Aquarium Bay. And along the Aquarium Bay, you have a lot of shops and restaurants and breweries. And of course, you have the Ripley's Believe It or Not and the Wax Museum. And then just south of the Aquarium Bay, you have the Oregon Coast Aquarium. You have the Hatfield Marine Science Center. So there's a lot of great activities that are lean a little more touristy probably in Newport, but Newport is beautiful. In particular, Nye Beach is one of the coolest little beach, communities. It feels like this little beach town right in Newport. Restaurants and shopping and things like that. It has these really cool, idyllic, quintessential beach houses in Nye Beach there. So Newport does have a lot to do. I think if you're living in Depoe Bay, you also have a hospital to the north in Lincoln City. You have a hospital to the south in Newport. So your access to healthcare on a per capita basis is probably about as good as you can get on the Oregon coast. And overall, being in Depoe Bay, you kind of get the best of both worlds. If you are looking for a smaller town, I think, again, the biggest downside in Depoe Bay is you don't have these vast beaches right there in town, but you have two towns, one to the north, one to the south, that are amongst the largest on the Oregon coast. So you can get a lot of what a bigger town has to offer, but you can get also the benefits of being in a smaller town that's a little quieter, a little more private, a little more laid back. Aside from that stretch on 101, I think, although Depoe Bay is a small town, it's a busy section of the Oregon coast, so a lot of people pass through. And again, a lot of people do come into Depoe Bay for some of those tourism elements, in particular, doing those charters, doing the fishing and the whale watching. Depoe Bay is another one of those towns that does skew quite a bit older in terms of the age demographic. So you're looking at a median age of 57 years old. When you look at like a Lincoln City, you're looking at closer to like 39, 40 years old for median age. So quite a big difference. So there are some towns up and down the Oregon coast, like a Manzanita, like Florence, like Bandon, where the median age skews about 60 plus, up to 65 years old. So some of these communities, like Depoe Bay on the Oregon coast, do tend to be a little bit more popular destinations when it comes to retirement. So depending on your lifestyle and what you're looking for, that certainly can be a consideration as well. But overall, the placement of Depoe Bay on the Oregon coast, close to Newport, close to Lincoln City, you do have a lot of accessibility to Western Oregon. So you could go from Lincoln City up through McMinnville, Newburgh, onto Highway 99, and then up into Portland that way. Or you could go south to Newport and go east into Corvallis, and then up I-5 and get into Portland that way as well. Get into Salem, get into some of these much larger, more populated areas of Oregon, whether you're looking for airport access or you want to get out to kind of a bigger city every once in a while. Depoe Bay, being kind of that northern section of the Central Oregon coast, kind of bumping right up into the northern Oregon coast. The accessibility to pretty much everything you would need within a relatively quick drive, under 90 minutes. You do have a lot there kind of at your doorstep. And then if we look at housing for Depoe Bay, the median sale price is $590,000. So that falls kind of right in the middle of some of the most affordable towns and some of the most expensive towns on the Oregon coast. You can get, like I mentioned, there's a $3.5 million listing right now. You can get million, $1.5, $2 million homes in Depoe Bay. Usually these are going to be really large homes. They're going to be, at some kind of elevation where you can get sweeping views of the ocean and of the bay. And I think your dollar does go a little bit further when you look at like price per square foot. Price per square foot being $331, so on par with Newport as far as what you can get for your dollar. Up in Lincoln City, for example, the average price per square foot is $390,000, so you're not getting as much home for your money. And in Lincoln City, you know, there's a lot of beachfront, a lot of oceanfront, a lot of ocean view properties because of the way the, you know, the city is laid out. Newport, you obviously can get a lot of that, but not as high a volume of that necessarily. So usually ocean views, beach access are really the biggest contributor to home values on the Oregon coast because that's what people are looking for. So if you look at Depoe Bay, you can get some of those ocean view type properties, maybe for not less on average as far as the sale price or purchase price, but you might be able to get a little bit more for your dollar as far as maybe getting that extra bedroom or getting that extra 500 square feet if you're looking for a little bit of a larger home. In town in Depoe Bay, you really don't have much of anything west of the highway, but again, you don't have that beach there. It's just kind of a cliff, you know, it drops off right, you know, right into the bay there. Aside from in Whale Cove, which is a little more of an upscale community in that area, kind of south of the bay. And then most of the housing in Depoe Bay is set behind 101 to the east, behind the downtown area where you have some pretty rapid elevation change. So it kind of climbs up a hill, and a lot of those houses up in there, again, you can get some ocean views, which is really incredible. So I think for somebody who is wanting to move to the Oregon coast, wanting to take in that scenery, kind of live more of a laid-back lifestyle, Depoe Bay does have a lot to offer. I think there are probably some things that you may have to sacrifice. Again, biggest being the beach access. Again, you're close to some of the best beaches on the Oregon coast. You're close to some of the biggest towns on the Oregon coast. So you really, again, have a lot at your doorstep being in a much smaller town. And then lastly, you know, you probably have seen this on a map, but it's D-E-P-O-E is how it's spelled, not D-E-P-O-T like depot. That is a mistake that some people can make, you know, when spelling it out. I think, you know, that becomes pretty evident pretty quickly when you see that, how it's spelled. But I think the inclination for a lot of people is to spell it with a T at the end, but just a reminder, it is spelled with an E at the end. So if Depoe Bay is an area that sounds interesting, or if you want to learn more about towns that are similar to Depoe Bay, give us a call, send us a text, shoot us an email, or click the link down below in the description of the video. Schedule a Zoom call with us. We can talk about your move, your timeline, put together a game plan for you. And if this video was helpful, make sure to hit the like button. And if you want to get more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel and click the little bell to get notified every time we drop a new video. As always, we appreciate you watching. Until next time, we'll talk to you later.